Let's move on to public comment. And I know, Karina, you are our public right now. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to give a quick update about the multi-benefit land repurposing program in the Merced Subbasin. I know we have a small crowd today. Is it okay, Lacey, if I just share? It's 2 slides just to give a
Yes.
visual to my little update here. Thank you. All right. And do you see the slide okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Okay, so just really briefly, the Merced, we call it MLRP, Multi-Benefit Land Repurposing Program, does have some funding available. It's through the end of this week. We released a solicitation in October, and I'm hopeful that folks have gotten word by now, either through the GSA meetings, the GSA listservs, or we sent out some mailers and also have leveraged the Farm Bureau and other partners to help get the word out. So this is a little bit of a kind of last hurrah here. There is $150,000 available per project. This is for planning, design, and permitting of projects. And the applications are due at the end of this week, midnight on January 30th. So if folks have questions, we do have a technical assistance team available and happy to field any issues with applications or submitting them. Please feel free to reach out. I'll put the email in the chat, but it's info@Merced MLRP. And there's lots of information on the website as well. So this is just a reminder about this funding opportunity. The other thing I wanted to mention is we do have a stakeholder advisory committee for the Merced MLRP. It plays a really important role in helping to shape the program thus far. Over the last 2 years, it's convened a couple of times and helped to create the project selection criteria along with actually reviewing the project. So when this RFP closes later this week, the committee has a role in helping to review the project finalists, and feedback from them is integrated, as well as other input on long-term planning documents that come out of this program, as well as monitoring efforts that will continue through the subbasin through the period of the grant, and also beyond is the hope that these resources will be available to the subbasin. So this advisory committee plays a really important role. We are inviting folks to join and are particularly interested in making sure we have perspectives from growers and landowners really well represented on this committee. So I would just say, please spread the word also if you know of folks who you think might be interested in joining. Our next meeting is coming up on March 5th, and there's a QR code. If folks are interested, you can follow that to the website and submit a form. You can email us, you can reach out through Lacey, any way works. But we appreciate it and are really hoping to invite some more growers in particular into the committee and make sure sort of we have really well-rounded perspectives on that advisory committee. So that's all. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll put a few things in the chat here, even though I know it's just us online. But thanks all for the time. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Karina. Is there anybody else for public comment? Nobody else from the public. Can you let that one guy in? Look, we have somebody else from the public joining. Yay. So we'll go ahead and move on to the minutes. And so we've got the minutes from December 16th. Our last meeting was sent out with the agenda packet. We don't have a quorum because we only have 3 TAC members here today. We need 6 for a quorum. And so we will add these minutes to our next meeting and see if we can get a quorum to approve the minutes then. Next is phase 2 feet, and I'm going to hand it over to Zanjero.
Thank you, Lacey. Do we want to give Mr. Smith an opportunity to introduce himself, and we can make introductions or not?
We can't. We have a really small meeting here today, so if you'd like to introduce yourself, you can, and if you have any public comment, you can make that as well. Or we just go on.
Yep. No worries. So For conversation today, we're going to discuss the phase two fee categories, and just a little bit about the phase two and really about the categories. More will be coming out on this in next month. Potentially, there will be a public draft released after the February 11th board meeting and workshops that would follow on this phase two fee. And we'll talk about the rest of the schedule here in a minute. But essentially, this fee replaces the current phase one fee, which is sunsetted now. And is the last fee setting was this past fiscal year, and that was submitted onto assessors' bills, and people are paying those assessments as we speak. So this new fee will come in and be considered for fee setting for the 2027 fiscal year here this June, and with an anticipation that that fee would then go out onto the assessor's bills for this fall. So the phase two fee is really a longer term replacement fee to the phase one. And we're writing this, there's a report that's got to be written to satisfy Proposition 218 procedures. And that report is outlining and discussing so the phase two categories, let's go back to that. The category one, administrative and governance functions, including executive director and technical staff and office space, allow for some grant writing opportunities as they may come up. The maintenance fees and updates and ADA compliance for the website. And then also, importantly, the groundwater accounting platform subscription and the potential customization and support. So that is all grouped into this category one. So we've identified how much each of those sub-elements might need, and then rolled that into say this category will have a certain amount of dollars as a max number. Remember, a 218 process requires a consideration of the max fee that could be charged. And we'll talk about the what that really means in another slide here in a minute. So then category two is about monitoring, data management, and technical studies. So this is continued technical support and studies that come up every once in a while. The support for folks like us and EKI and some of the support that Woodard and Cran or others have provided over time. Alternative remote sensing platforms should, it's allowed under the rule right now, and should that be chosen and selected, and instead of us getting OpenET data for free, we have to start paying for something to come into the accounting platform. There's the ability to collect some dollars associated with that. And then importantly, addressing data gaps, which includes drilling some new wells or monitoring and equipping existing wells to satisfy the data gaps that we have that are identified in the GSP right now. Category three is really about domestic well. Yeah.
How is the GSP getting funded in the updates? Not through this fee?
It's through recall there's the 29 administrative fee that still exists. Okay. And that has the fundings that go to the 5-year updates and the annual reports and the support of the data management shared with MID. Wrong ID. MID based on total acres, and that's split.
Sure.
Does that answer? Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Category three is to provide for the domestic well mitigation, which that was just adopted at the last board meeting. Has three primary parts: the administration of the domestic well program. So people are going to be submitting requests, and that takes some staff time to look at and address, and maybe have to get outside input, maybe from self-help or others to administer the program. So there's costs involved there. The emergency bottled water, that is a temporary condition where tanks or bottled water are provided while assessments are done as to whether a permanent solution should be brought and implemented. And then monies for the long-term solution, which per the adopted plan is $30,000 for up to $30,000 for a permanent solution. So the report will provide basis for all of these, giving dollar amounts and then rolling that up into a total. that will then divide by the eligible acres that we're expecting, would have and the eligible acres are anybody that's going to get an allocation that includes all the new opt-in grounds. Lacey, did you want something? I see.
No, I was talking to Danielle.
Okay, sorry.
We're messing with the screen.
No problem. So
Gonna watch the recording.
you're gonna play back that recording? I'm gonna have nightmares.
Nightmares, right.
So- So the report will provide the basis and the details, and then we'll say it's going to apply to this many acres, and therefore the max potential annual assessment across all three categories in any year per acre would be X. So that's what's going to come forward in the report that likely will be made available after the 11th and set up for some workshops. So next slide, Adriel. So a little bit more detail on the engineer's report. It's going to estimate the max budget. It's the annual costs are going to vary. We know that. So kind of going forward and thinking about the forecast into the future, we know we collected some funds in the phase 1 fee that weren't utilized. Like we collected for drought mitigation or the dry year well program. We collected some for the executive director. So there's some dollars that will be able to, when the board considers budgeting this year, may not need to ask for the max because there's some monies that'll be able to be considered coming forward. But nonetheless, the 218 process has to set up so you can estimate the max. And so we have to assume some increases in cost of living. We have to consider assuming no grants and other budget data of our recent costs that we've expended are all the basis and supporting information. The likelihood that we'll need to ask for all that max will then depend on the actual conditions in each year the board considers. So as an example, if we look at this next slide, this is the historic MSG fees, MSGSA fees. Sorry, too many meetings in a row today. The middle, that column that's kind of the orange peach color is the 2019 fee. So Brad, to your point, that had an irrigated and an unirrigated component. And that is what's funding up to $4 and up to 50 cents. But you can see that in several of the years, including even last year, this last budget cycle of 25-26, it charged $1.04 for irrigated and 13 cents for the unirrigated. And you can see it was almost as much as $4 a couple of years prior. So you can see where it varies a little bit depending on budget need and et cetera, but the max was down at the bottom. Phase 1 fees similarly did not exist in 1920, 2021. It didn't come into play until fiscal year 22. And then that first year really asked for the max. You can see the max number on the very bottom of the blue columns. And then the subsequent years were all able to back off from that max substantially this last year based on what actually came out and the needs of the project. This fee then will now just be an irrigated fee. So it'll only apply to the acres that are getting an allocation, and it is going to be a fee that comes into play in 26-27. You can see phase 1 will no longer be available, and the 2019 will be determined, but you can see its history and its pattern. And so these are the things the board will be considering when they bring all of this forward, presuming that a phase 2 fee is approved through the 218 process. They'll be able to consider setting forth the phase 2 fee at the June board meeting. Any questions on that? I think that was really all our slides on this point.
Is there a termination date on the phase 2?
There is not. We are not putting a forced termination, but because the way this all works out, you can essentially not charge or charge very minimal. Maybe you're only charging for category 1, like you got a director and one staff person and some accounting platform fees. So you're only collecting for that, but you need to still have that off into the future, right? You can't just bankrupt the GSA after 10 years.
I should probably know this off the top of my head, but what's the total acres?
We're
Irrigated acres
irrigated acres are about 190-ish right now. It was 177 when
was
applied to
170.
phase one, but we've had opt-in acres out of the
Okay.
300 and what are we 360 some odd thousand in our GSA.
330, 336, 335 in the GSA.
And so about 100 and 50% of it irrigated. Next slide has a schedule.
Yeah.
So sorry, there was one more about the phase two, and these are the key dates. And you can see the public draft is anticipated to be released on the 11th of the report. A final report that would be brought forward and adopted by the board on the 12th. That would set up the hearing to actually have the 218 hearing as required by statute towards the end of April. Then at the May meeting, they would likely set rates of what they would charge based on where the budgets were. June, they would adopt their budget, and then it would get submitted in August to the county and go to the assessor rolls. So that's our schedule where we're at right now. And those outreach workshops, sorry, there's no dates there, but we're planning them between the 11th and the 1st of March. We're working on scheduling.
So does the hearing coincide with like a county election? Or is it?
No.
Is it gonna be a separate?
No, the hearing is totally separate. The mailing about the protest is just going to be separate from the GSA. And then they can either mail their protest in or they can come to the hearing and hand it in.
And maybe more to your point, Brad, where there's a certain time frame,
45 days.
45 days. So we would
Yeah.
want the March 12th date to adopt the final report. Then that would trigger the mailings of those documents that would say, here's how you can protest vote. Either mail this back in or show up on the April hearing date once that is scheduled. And then we'll collect all that information. They'd have the hearing. They'd see if there was enough to justify a protest. And then otherwise they would make their determination at that hearing date in late April. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, Greg, can you talk a little bit about the two public workshops and the kind of GE's thing, the AB blah, 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 blah?
Yes. The AB blah, 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 blah. So there was some legislation that was added recently to assure that Prop 218 was getting the right balance of opportunity to raise questions and issues, as well as provide protection against some late litigations that may have raised issues that were never brought up prior. So what the workshops are intended to do is a topic that's brought up at the workshop, an issue that is brought up at the workshop is if it is not addressed by the final adopted report, which we're showing to be in March. So hopefully those are issues that we could address by then if they're whatever's brought up. That if they were brought up and addressed or maybe not addressed, that what was brought forward in the workshop and the topics discussed there are the only things somebody could bring litigation against the GSA topic-wise.
And it's Assembly Bill 2257.
There it is. And so we're taking a little extra time to do the workshops, and I think there's a little extra time that the Assembly Bill requires kind of added on to everything else in order to do this extra outreach and make sure that people can tell us what their concerns are and we can address them and kind of head off some possible litigation at the end. If we don't do that, if we don't follow the provisions of SB 2275, then somebody could come after it's adopted and sue on something they've never told the GSA about before. And so that's what we're trying to protect against that. So there are a few extra hoops we're jumping through to protect ourselves at the end.
I know you have to obviously protect yourself to the end, But do you anticipate litigation?
No, but we didn't anticipate litigation last time either,
Oh, I know,
so,
no doubt about it.
and we've,
From what I'm hearing.
Jeannie's reviewing it, Jeannie's got her special 218 counsel, who's very good at this, and he's reviewing it, so.
I mean, for me, if it's a farmer-led lawsuit, it's gonna be about the scope and the dollar amount on the 218 process. They may end up suing on the 218 process, but the reason is gonna be like $250 or something like that.
Yeah.
But from what I see with that scope, I don't anticipate that. It's gonna be like, I haven't done the math,
Yeah,
but I see it being like a phase one with plus minus.
yeah. Greg, can you guarantee it's not gonna be $250 an acre?
So I will guarantee that our report will not present
Better guarantee
anything.
it, Greg.
Yeah, I think we all
No,
Did you notice how I was saying that? I'm guaranteeing my report. I don't know what the board might do. That's out of my hands.
So
Oh.
what you'll notice that weren't included in the funding categories are
Projects.
projects. There are no projects funded.
Projects that may or may not get filled, and farmers got to front first.
Yeah, so this GSA isn't paying for projects, but on the other hand, this GSA isn't paying for projects. They can only put policies like allocation in place.
Well, the
So that's the balance.
project we tried to pay for through fees didn't really even do much. The following, it's like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was no allocation. I wonder if we put the following in place again, if we'd get more interest now that there's an allocation in place. I think there would be more interest, but,
yeah, that's the whole problem.
well, but now the allocate, but now you
Uh-oh.
can, now you can use the.
You're using state money to do it?
Yeah.
Using the local money to pay for the neighbors.
Yeah, so.
What happens to that extra 150K that they have available at the MLRP? If they don't end up using that, would that go to projects or would that go, where does that, or is that state?
Hundred and,
Part of the block grant, so it's not gonna go
it's in the
outside.
grant.
oh, yeah,
Yeah, those are all reimbursable grants. So if there's there's no receipt, there's no money.
gotcha. It goes back.
It's so so I think that, we're trying to lay out a process that fully recognizes all the concerns that have been brought up before. I think we're trying to right size a budget for the GSA to operate long term, noting that it's not doing projects. We also, if you recall, there's no water rights in this, those components. None of those components have water rights.
Just predicting the staffing and how to the cost of living adjustments and all that over time. Very volatile.
So one of the things that according to Jeannie, the way you can discuss it is you set an anticipated budget for staff, and then by discussing and representing that there is a cost of living adjustment that's allowed, the board is empowered to be able to put a reasonable cost of living, even if it changes the numbers that might have been the original max associated with that category only. Because you're right. I mean, 20 years from now, what is the salary of an executive director? Who knows? But we'll probably exceed whatever max was being collected today.
Not gonna be any farms left. So there
So
might not be a need.
Might be no need. You're exactly right. So we're trying to find that right balance of everything. And again, the board has the report says, hey, you can charge up to this per year, board. And then the board will consider all these other implications, whether what the situation is, what the budgets are we having a bunch of dry wells? Where's that budget holding? Have we hired staff? And then appropriately right size that particular year's budget. So Move on to the other topic now, unless there's other questions on this one.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll just say also, I know there's only 3 of you here. You guys can help make sure people are seeing this and understanding it's coming out, and there's going to be these workshops the latter part of February. Wow, how'd I get to May already? Latter part of February, and it'll be important for people to come and participate and understand what the fee involves and voice any concerns or raise any questions. So thank you in advance. Next topic.
The next topic, groundwater allocation rule and cover crops.
So we've had conversations about this in TAC before. And so we wanted to just kind of finalize, maybe get to something that's closer to final now so we can start to bubble that up through the board and have a more public conversation about it fully. So if you recall, we have this current rule for precip for all gross acres of parcels. And this is in the rule. And then we had discussed, as on the next slide, this, ignore the highlighted yellow section for a moment, although everybody's eyes just went there. Down further, we have the same 3 categories of greater than 12 inches, greater than 9, less than 9, where we say if we're greater than 12, we can potentially, if you are a cover crop, generally, you have the potential to get another 3 inches of eligible inches per rain. If we're between 9 and 12, potential for up to 2 more inches. And if we're less than 9, you don't get any more benefit. You just, because everybody gets 100% in that prior formulation we were just looking at. So now what we had talked with the TAC about before is this worry about the highlighted portion where it says 70%. So a thought to address this and try and create as much flexibility, but also giving the GSA the opportunity to call somebody out if something's not really happening would be some language that would replace this current language that would say something similar to what we see here on the bottom. If you can see this, at least 60% of this again is for orchards or vineyards. At least 60% of the rows are planted with cover crop, and that the cover crops are consistent with locally recognized practices. If you recall the conversation, the gentleman from, and I'm forgetting his name, but with the vineyards, Brad, I think you brought him along.
Eduardo.
Yeah, from Yellow.
Yeah, so he was worried. He was talking about
now.
row spacing and
Not on
planting spacing.
No. Go ahead.
So he was worrying about row spacing, et cetera, and the 60 or 70% and being worried about that. And we're like, okay, let's not try and lock anybody down about how much within each row is planted. But we also need to make sure if you got 50 acres of a vineyard that you aren't just planting 2 rows and saying the whole 50 acres is cover cropped. You need to at least plant, every other row, which would probably equate to about 60% of the ground being planted. And then within each row, it should just be consistent with cover crop practices. So don't just put a seed drill in there that plants one strip of some sort of plant, like 1 2-inch narrow strip. You should, that probably doesn't qualify. Do something that's at least consistent, but we're not trying to tie down to anything. So that vaguer language was a way to maybe allow for that. And we wanted.
Quick question.
Yeah.
On the cover crops, like, so I took like a seminar the other day, basically on like regenerative ag and all this. And, the goal is to have it all reseed itself. And so you don't have to sow it. And so, through that process, like the process that we're going through right now, there's a lot of weeds, and it takes years to get the competition of the weeds out to get the chosen cover crop or whatever multi-species that you want to put in there. And so, maybe to, maybe to somebody at like CDFA, they might look at it and say that, we need a receipt for your clover and that's all that's gonna count for a cover crop. Whereas like in the legit kind of regenerative world, they don't care and they actually like encourage weeds and everything else because weed is just a frame of mind on whether that's a desired plant or not. So, I think maybe to a common observer, if you drive by and see a bunch of weeds, you might not realize that it's kind of performing the same thing. And basically the mindset that most people have is that's not helping out, but it is. So there's not going to be any like straight tie down to it has to be a certain accepted cover crop through the
Correct.
process, right?
And that's why we were trying to be vague with locally recognized cover crop practices. So to your point, Larkin, hey, I
Okay.
drilled it once to plant something, and now I'm trying to get it over multiple years doing what it needs to do and reseed
Right.
itself. And maybe sometimes that's part of a tilling or a mowing practice and whatever it is. But that's part of the common practice as opposed to I'm just a lazy grower and it's just weedy, overrun vines.
Is it really any different if it's doing all the same stuff?
I think our intent is we're wanting to give those who are trying to do this for purposes of regenerative ag,
Mhm.
we're trying to be neutral, right? We're trying to not get in a position where that additional ET signature might be pulling out of your allocation bucket. So we're trying to
Right.
give you a little bit more rain. But we aren't necessarily, if you really aren't doing any practice and it's just a mess out there, are we really trying to reward that person? I don't know. So this is part of the conversation. We're trying to find that right size where the GSA wants to be agnostic on it. It doesn't want to discourage cover cropping, but it doesn't want to create things where it's like, oh yeah, that's cover cropping, sure.
Right. No, I hear you. I guess it's in the eye of the beholder and that's
Yeah.
probably where we need to drill down on that, I guess, because, like I said, so like last year we seeded, this year we hoped that it was going to reseed itself. And so we're in the process, but somebody might drive by and say, oh, they just let that go. And that's not what we did. And so
Correct.
if the GSA has to come through and judge, oh, this is something that is or something that isn't, whether it's weeds or cover crops, it's probably not a good position for them to be in either, because again, it's in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, somebody that maybe doesn't have the funds but still wants to have the same end practice would just let the weeds go and get the benefit from it without having to spend the money on, say, clover or something like that.
So
And
maybe
you
the
guys to drive
local,
by and see it as maybe just a weedy mess.
so maybe it's the local RCD kind of says, yeah, Larkin's doing it, but Lou's not. And
Gotcha.
we're like, okay, we'll take that. We're not
Oh,
trying to be the
okay.
judge. We're
Like a
just
third party verification or something, maybe like that.
They just have to agree with you that it's locally recognized practice.
Right, but like a lot of the locally recognized practices are based on money that's coming from the state and it has to be
No.
certain things.
Those are the government standards.
Right.
Locally, it will be what you and your neighbors do.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah.
So not local government. Well, see, we don't regulate each other out there. So I'm thinking, when you say local, I'm thinking local government.
No, locally recognized practice. But
Okay.
generally acceptable amongst farming
Okay,
community in the
cool.
region.
I gotcha.
That's how I read it.
I agree. That's how I read it as well.
Okay, excellent.
And I would agree, and I'm going to pull us all back again. What are we doing with this allocation? We're trying to set sustainable yield numbers in APA so that we get groundwater levels coming up. So if we reward a cover crop with a little more rain so that it doesn't come out of your allocation, but your groundwater levels are still going down, we probably are going to have some other issue about the quantity of sustainable yield or something, right? So we're trying to just put things in there to put a little bit of side rails and make sure we aren't discouraging, but we can be agnostic. So the idea again was let's give these additional bumps for somebody who's legitimately trying to do something from a regenerative and agronomic practice.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
I don't know that this is a bad thing, but as it's written, I don't foresee any grower with a vineyard or orchard not getting this allocation. So
Well, if they plant a cover crop.
Are you saying any at all?
But that's like also an eye of the beholder, like you let your weeds go long. Every single person's gonna claim they have.
A lot of almond growers, like super clean floors. No matter what, I just keep it perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's like,
So,
that's,
that's a practice.
it's a practice, but, you know, it's at a, you know, I don't know, it's not out of water savings or whatever, it's more out of like,
And they won't, no, I know, and
Yeah.
they shouldn't get rewarded,
right, totally,
and they won't, and I'm just saying, he's saying that.
Everybody.
It's too loose.
gotcha.
Well, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I do think it's loose. I think 100% of almond growers are gonna be like, that, you know, or just attest to the fact.
Not that much water. That's a lot,
It's worth it,
20% more.
right?
right,
And so I just don't know if that's the right allocation. Again, I don't know enough about what ET will take from the cover crop, so I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows, because,
We looked at some comparatives,
yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
sent
it's-
for some of mine.
it's a few inches.
We-
Uh,
And we've looked at that, and it's, again, it is not, there's nothing super definitive, so we're trying to just be, trying to be as loose, but give room for the GSA to tighten up if we need to, kind of thing, I think. It's a balancing act, and we're gonna all learn more over the next several years. If everybody in every orchard is claiming this, Lou, as you're saying, and we're still seeing groundwater levels go down, we're gonna be like, well, you guys are all gonna get less than 13 inches of sustainable yield.
Or we change the definition of cover cropping.
Yeah.
Or something, right, exactly.
Whatever, yeah.
I don't know enough to take a stance on whether these are the right figures and how much you get taxed, so to speak, for having a cover crop in your open ET allocation or open ET evapotranspiration number. So maybe this is right on the nose. But I from my perspective, I think 100% of growers, or very close to 100%, are gonna be buying for those extra 2 to 3 inches. And maybe that's good, maybe that's fine, I just wanted to put it out there. Cause even the ones that want clean floors are gonna quickly change their opinion
3 inches.
on 3 inches.
Well, they'll just clean their floors April 30th, go out there, mow it all down,
Right,
and then have perfectly clean between April and October.
Well, it does say in this language, it says it has to be 5 months, so November 1 through April 30th. Essentially, you gotta, and that might get shrunk to 4 maybe, but you gotta have something growing out there, so you can't just, let it grow
and
for
certainly 100%.
30 days.
Certainly 100% of growers will claim that they have a cover crop, and
Yes.
the TAC doesn't want to have.
That's probably why your programs, your state and federal programs will require your seed receipts or something, that you actually intended to put a cover crop out there. And so, that's the argument for, show us that you did this intentionally and you weren't just letting weeds grow for 5 months and getting an extra 2 to 3 inches. But
So-
that's the opposite of what Larkin was saying.
Right.
If we tighten it up and we say, okay, show us you're being intentional, then we are being more true to actual people who are intending to cover crop, but it's tightening it up. There's less
I'd
flexibility.
rather do it, start this way, and if you see it not working,
Then ratchet it down.
branch it down
Yeah.
and make it harder.
Yeah.
They're having some sort of.
Well, I think also,
It's hard to ratchet down, as you know, right? You open up a policy, it's hard to get more narrow than it is to get open.
The pie is
Right.
not getting bigger.
The pie- The pie is not getting bigger. No.
Here's another question, is the 3 and 2 inches, is that the right number? Or should it be
2 and 1.
2 and 1? That's a
It
big
says
difference.
it says up to an additional, so I think Adriel had looked at this based on the last 20 years of rainfall records to kind of see what might make sense. And this was the kind of the limits there.
it's upper bound, but really in a lot of years, what's governing is that last sentence where we're saying in no instance shall the total rainfall be exceeded. So it's like, yes, we were between 9 and 12 inches, but we only got 9.5 inches of rain that year. So the max we would ever give you is 9.5.
Maybe it's fine, because I guess on the times when you get a 16-inch year, it's probably fine to give everybody 3 inches, but I'm just, my comment is everybody is gonna have cover whether they actually do or not. That's what everybody's gonna test.
So you're saying the opposite of her.
Yeah, there's gotta be something in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm certainly not, I don't know enough about this, I have a strong opinion, but I'm just, my
You
comments.
know
I
how
think-
valuable 3 inches are.
I know how valuable 3 inches, that's the issue. Maybe it's fine, maybe this is supportable, and maybe by not cover crop, it costs you, or by cover crop, it costs you 4 inches, so 3 inches is, should be higher, I don't know.
Well, the point is if it works how it's supposed to work, then it's supposed to
Save more.
save water.
Yeah,
And so it's like, if you could get to the other side of it, then I think that it's gonna yield you back and, do what it's told. And then we won't be taking as much water in theory because we've got these cover crops and this dynamite water holding capacity.
will, you think that is the 3 and the 2, is that the right number?
I mean, so basically, we have to have more than 12 inches of rain, right? So how often does that happen?
Well, and recognize that if you have more than, let's say we have that 16-inch year Lou just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Now you get 12 plus 50% of that difference. So you're going to get 2 more inches. So you're going to get 14 already in a 16-year. You potentially could get 16 in a 16-inch year if you have cover crop.
Right.
But if we only had 15, you might get the 12 plus 1.5, which we might round up to 14 anyway. So you might only get 15 for the cover crop. And so it's trying to accommodate a little bit, but whether it's fully accommodating for the additional ET, we hope so. That's what the intent is. But there's not a lot more adding on top here unless you get really wet years.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The percentage of really wet years is pretty unfortunately lean. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this, right?
Yeah.
So, the years that that's gonna factor in, I wouldn't guess would be more than 2 and 10. Well, God willing, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
what,
Like
last year we
that.
got like 5, 6 or 5, 6
Bypass
inches.
runs, yeah.
I guess we're all,
Five,
but we'll be based on, like, percent,
Right,
that's gonna be a little bit
right,
different, because I know where we are, we get quite a bit more than the other side.
right. Yeah,
Um,
well, here you go.
Yeah.
So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 15, 30%.
And then, as Adriel said, you have that stopgap or that fail safe where you can't exceed the amount that language bottom. Maybe it's the right regulation, I don't know.
The one thing I wanted to ask about too was the length of time. So being that we've done this cover crop thing for quite a while in our almonds, there's major logistical problems if you let it grow too long and it goes too big into April, like burning down tractors and such, because you have such vegetation out there that things end up getting caught and smoking belts and then things catch on fire.
Huh.
And I speak from experience, right? I wasn't the driver, but it does happen. A couple years ago when it was super duper wet, we couldn't get in there without screwing up the floor, so we didn't go in there and mow things down. So the cover crop was this big, and then it just starts building up, and it ended up being a logistical problem. So like stretching it all the way out to April, because you still have to get rid of this stuff. Like we still have to harvest, and so if you have a massive amount of greenery, it's hard to incorporate it back into the ground that quickly. So you almost need like small little bits and like lawn clippings, at least in our soil. Like if the size of the vegetation is small, you can get it back in. So we just mow regularly. But if you just like don't touch it until April, then you've got like a heaping mess of vegetation, and then it's extremely difficult to harvest. Because you're basically pushing together a bunch of weeds and whatnot. So if there's a way to shorten that window up, or perhaps start it a little bit earlier or something like that, like we planted our cover crops, at least for the olives, like beginning of September, and then just let the seeds sit there until the rain came. And so we technically had them in, but then it'll come out on the other end. We'll clip it a little bit earlier.
So maybe it's like you need to have it for at least a couple of months planted somewhere in this 5-month window, like something that kind of gives us that it's And when I say planted, recognizing again the cultural practice discussion we just had, you may have planted it last year, but
Right.
you're,
And when I say like have it there, I mean, basically we keep it green as long as it wants to stay green and then it dies out when there's no more water left in the soil. And so we just kind of mow it like a lawn, you know what I'm saying? But the logistical problem on the, you know, farming side of it is if you don't touch it and then try and terminate it at the end, it ends up being problems.
I think we could be more explicit there, but in my head, that would qualify as your maintenance of having the cover crop there
Mhm.
with your locally recognized practice.
Okay, cool. So just mowing it, so it's there, it's living, it's qualified, and, you know, then we're just maintaining it as such.
Yeah,
Right.
I think so. And the other point I was gonna make earlier is to your point of you planted it once with the intent that it would regrow in years that followed. So you've taken an action in 1 year that you can prove. Now you're just maintaining it. I don't think the
Trying to.
requirement is that you have to go out and buy seeds every year and do this action.
Mhm.
Your action in and of itself is maintaining the cover crop during that time period.
that's not what that seed grower was telling us. No, I'm just kidding.
Seed seller of our.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You said
Yeah,
something about a
because, you know, I
kickback or
mean,
something, yeah.
it didn't, you know, like 1 year it didn't come back up because it didn't seed out well enough to make it happen. And so, you know, the next year we're waiting and waiting and waiting and it's not here. But, you know, other things like mustard and stuff, you know, it'll come back and it'll be fine. But sometimes it just doesn't work out like you want it to work out, you
Is
know,
that driven
despite all the effort.
that year where it didn't come back? Is that driven because of lack of precipitation for that year?
Yeah, actually, you know, like, let's see, 1 year I can think of, it was lack of precipitation. It was a completely dry year, so nothing germinated. Another year, you know, it came up, but then froze out. So that was gone. Another year it came up and then, it'll come up like this year was pretty scary. It came up and then we didn't have any rain for a really long period of time. And like everything is struggling, the soil's getting tight and pinching all the little plants off. And so basically like things were just dying out there in the field, but there's no rain. And so then the rain finally came back. It put a little moisture in the ground, and then now we're just rolling on fog and dew. And so it's just completely wet because of the fog and the dew, and everything is kind of cycling, but I haven't seen the sun in 3 months. You know what I'm saying? So it makes a little bit of a difference there. But it's keeping it alive. Nothing's growing tall. Nothing, I mean, everything is still like stuck like this, but it's alive. So, you know, even when you do plant it, then there's no rain coming. You just lost all your money for the seed and you tried to do the cover crop, but there is nothing out there when you guys come by in March and it wasn't for a lack of effort.
Right.
I don't know how to prove that to you. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's a lot of documentation, I guess, on our end, which, you know, I need more of that. But if that's what it would take to prove it, pictures and such, that's
We also will have an invoice from the seed, but it could be a few years old.
totally,
But we'll have some data,
totally.
and maybe that's a fail safe that stops, you know, Lou in his hypothetical from claiming that I did a cover crop. Like,
Off sales.
Yeah,
Yeah, because those grow. No matter what, it seems like they always come up.
I'm gonna share for just a second here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Just, this would be an idea of how we, you know, without trying to get a bunch of paperwork or some things like that, we might be able to see stuff like that. This orchard, it's pretty bare ground across the street. This looks like it's being managed where, you know, it's clear under the trees and then there's growth. You know, so I would say, hey, this seems like cover cropping, but this one doesn't have cover cropping, right?
Absolutely.
So,
But
I
I
mean,
think that the one
go
with the
ahead.
cover crop on the right there, if I had to guess, it's just this like little tiny orchard grass weed that comes up that only grows about 4 inches and it's
Yeah,
not
so
planted.
maybe, and there's plenty of other examples around here of seeing something that maybe is a little taller than that.
No, that little weed right
Right.
there is ideal. And if we, yeah, and if I could buy the seed for it, I would, because it's perfect. It comes up no matter what. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
grow very tall. The gophers are always exposed so the owls can get them. Like it's a miracle thing, but nobody sells it. So that's
Got
my
it.
next exit strategy, I guess.
I agree with that. And my comment is all of those orchards are gonna say they're cover crop,
Totally,
just FYI.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know what to do about that.
because there's no seed invoice for that, but it's a dynamite cover crop. You know what I
But
mean?
even the barren ones right next to it, they're gonna say, oh, I cover the 3 inches, everybody's gonna say.
So you're saying the verification, we're gonna, like, verifying all the stuff and is where you're.
That it's intentional,
That it's intentional.
something that it's intentional. And I think as you guys think about this, also think about who the decision makers are that you have to convince, and you've got a board that that's job is to reduce groundwater use.
Right,
So,
but again, the point of the cover crops is, once you get it into the system, it should do that.
right,
So if you can get somebody to hang with you long enough to believe in it, that,
You just can't over reward it.
yeah,
That's my comment.
Right.
Is the 3 inches, and I don't know the answer, maybe 3 inches is under rewarding, maybe 3 inches is the perfect answer, the 2 to 3 inches. And maybe it's perfectly crafted. I think just my comment is everybody is going to claim
Be a
they
taker.
have for 20% more.
yeah.
I'm of the mindset, we're not gonna get it perfect, so get it wrong. And
Yeah.
figure it out.
Start somewhere.
Yeah.
Start somewhere and try it. Just flag it to the board and say they might
I mean,
need
do
to
the
adjust.
best we can and
Yeah.
have discussions like this, and they'll have their discussion. Do our best, but
And we'll have more
not get,
data at that point.
not get too bogged down.
yeah, but you'll know how many wet years we have, or, you know, at least a little bit of.
How many growers are claiming,
Exactly, and more.
what issues we're having with abuse, taking all of the staff's time to like
Verify it.
monitor this stuff for 2 inches.
Argue.
And argue.
And
Oh, this is cover
Yeah.
crop, you see that blade of grass
Yeah.
down there?
Right.
Hey, Greg, in other GSAs that have looked at cover crop, I know, East Turlock GSA is looking at it. Do they of what is a cover crop?
So I'm going to ask you to repeat that because of course the
Because my
timing of
internet is unstable.
hesitating was right when you asked the question.
Yeah. In looking at like East Turlock GSA or other GSAs that have cover crop, do they have a definition of what they require a cover crop to be? Can it just be these voluntary weeds grew in my orchard, or do they have a more stringent definition that would match what Lou is talking about? Because
That's not my
I think,
definition, because I agree with,
Me.
yeah, that even weeds are serving a purpose. And comment is when it's bare ground, people are still gonna say it's cover.
It's pretty much directly out of there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
especially the highlighted shall
Maybe
be
lying, but they're still gonna say it.
And
So,
it can be
under
verified.
ET, yeah, so under ET allocation over the course of the winter, when there's no leaves on the trees, but there will be, yes. ET
But
from
if
the
it's-
leaves.
Can you pull it up from this?
Would it not show it? I don't bare bones farm, but would it show nothing if you bare bones it?
I have no idea.
Me neither.
but if it's just weeds, isn't that covered by wasn't that covered by your effective precipitation? And why do you need that extra bump? Just weeds.
Is that the people that farm completely clean are gonna say that they're got a
Yeah.
cover crop, right?
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
And so he's saying, who's gonna verify that? Everybody's gonna say that, whether they have it or not. And I think where I misunderstood what you're saying is like what seed or what
Yeah,
practice. It's more like, is it there or not?
yeah, it's more binary.
Yeah, I got
But
you.
guys, like for service water, you gotta submit a receipt or a picture or something.
Right.
You gotta show pictures of your orchard with some sort of proof. I don't know.
Well, okay, what we do for the Healthy Soils program is we geotag our photos and take like 5 photos around the orchard
There you go.
and then upload them to the system. And then if they can literally look at the pictures and
Mhm.
connect the
And
GPS.
attestation of some kind.
So if there's some kind of question, you know, you can ask for verification.
So maybe that's it. If
That's
you're
not that hard to do.
selecting- If you're
Some people still-
if you're identifying yourself as a cover crop, you need to at least submit, 2 geolocated photos demonstrating.
And click on an attestation.
So, yeah, like some attestation every year under penalty of perjury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your prior question about East Turlock, this language that we had in here, the 70% orchard flows, floor, 60% vineyard, as specified in CDFA's Healthy Soils, this was the language, and the 5-month window is language from East Turlock.
Oh, okay.
We should mirror it.
And we're saying maybe that's a little too stringent because it's missing some of these things that might be reality. So we're trying to back off that a little bit from what we're hearing. But I think if to what you just said, you're going to say, I have a cover crop, here's a couple photos, and I'm clicking the attestation checkbox. And
I think having that in the proposed policy that the board reviews for the first time would be important.
yeah, okay. That any grower selecting this will need to
From the geolocated
Geotag,
photos.
yeah, geotag photos plus clicking the button upon submission is
Love
an attestation statement. So I think that's it's the best. We're going to adjust all of these things over time. We just likelihood of these being exactly what we see if we were to look back 10 years from now is it's going to be close. It's going to have all the right categories and pieces, but the numbers might not be the same in the
whole thing could be taken out too.
God willing, wipe it.
Yeah.
I mean, Sigma, that's what you're
Larkin
talking about.
Yeah.
was suggesting that maybe, I don't think anybody knows the answer to that, but maybe you could tell if there's a cover crop when for almonds, any of the deciduous trees, when the leaves have fallen, through the ET signature. Does anybody know if that's possible or the fog obscure it all?
We can look at it with a couple of parcels that we can see in the data sets that are those two examples, and then maybe compare. Obviously, the ET signature in December, January, February is much smaller than the ET signature you see later in the season. So I don't know if we'd see enough variance from that, but we can try. I don't know if it would be enough to be setting a rule that says if you're less than X, then you obviously don't have a cover crop.
Well,
Which would be
and
ideal if we could do that, but I don't know if that's doable.
I mean, there's a certain amount of weeds that grow, like the hills turn green between December and March. And that's just with precipitation. That doesn't need an extra 3 inches. That's just with what rain gives. So I want to be careful that we're not giving this extra 3 inches for something that's just going to happen no matter what every year. It's kind of what Lou said, everyone's going to claim it. They're not going to do anything, but they're going to claim it. They're going to get the extra 3 inches. But your rain, like the effective precipitation that you got covered that. And so to me, it's very similar to a lot of the conversations we're having about the inactive parcels that we're allowing you to turn off a big field, because we know that Open ET has trouble with big fallow fields, but we're not allowing people to turn off like their house. It's likely that Open ET, even though it's empty, Open ET is probably, that's covered by your effective precipitation. And so I'm worried that we're getting into a place where we're giving inches where we don't need to be giving inches. And
I'm also worried about staff time, managing it. If you're giving everybody 2 to 3 inches,
yeah, it adds up. I mean, the list is long of what the GSA is giving everybody to help them start off on like a little better position. But it's starting to add up that you're not going to have to reduce for a really long time in some of these situations. And I'm not the only one who's saying it.
Maybe building on that. You guys are frozen. Can you hear us again? Now you're back.
Yeah.
The building on a little bit there that Larkin, your participation in that seminar recently was about regenerative ag benefits. And one of it is soil health, reduced pesticide, reduced insecticides, other things that are agronomic benefits of doing this. When doing that, you might retain more moisture in your soil from rain, and you might have a little bit more transpiration that occurs with that cover crop. That's what we're trying to not discourage by having something that doesn't accommodate that. But to the point of weeds just grow, even if you did nothing, that's not really regenerative ag action. That's just, I didn't do anything. And so that's the balance that we don't know where to draw that line, but we need to be
I think
cognizant.
the guy
of
that
the-
gave the seminar the other day would argue with you, Greg. I mean, I don't have a dog in the fight because I do it intentionally, but he was hammering home like how horrible it is just for the complete scorched earth farmer and just the amount of inputs, the amount of chemicals, all the things that you're talking about, how much more water you use. And, a lot of the, I guess, according to him, the erroneous thinking is that, these weeds will take more water, that they will take your nutrients when in fact, they kind of do the opposite. They support all the life in the soil that will eventually help your crop and take less. So I completely
Right.
understand where you guys are coming from. You don't want some mooch to walk in and say, yeah, that's what I was doing when they're not doing that. I get that. But it seems to me when you balance the whole thing out, maybe what do we say? Maybe 30% of the time it might be over 12 inches. And then somebody's gonna have to get their crap together enough to send in a photo geotagged and make sure that that's right in order to get the 3 inches of water. And then it probably rained that year anyway, and you're not gonna pump it because the cover crop is gonna grow off the rain. So you're not extracting it from the ground either. And eventually you're helping put more organics in the ground so you can extract less water later. So, I see where you guys are coming from, but I really don't think this 3 inches is that big of a deal in the long term. The amount of times that you're gonna have to give it away and people are gonna have to verify it. I understand that the list is getting long on crap to do because it is not short on our end as farmers either.
Right.
I mean, trying to figure out 20-year crops and how much water you're going to use and when things are coming out and when things are going in based on commodity prices and how much water you have. And in my case, one county's rules versus another county's rules in one field. The list is long for everybody, but I don't think that we short people that are trying to make it better in the long run. I think we just bear with them and because in the end, it's going to benefit everybody. I'm off
Yeah,
myself.
no, I totally I hear that. We're trying to right size something to provide some guardrails.
Yeah.
We're never going to have this perfect. So I think the idea of some sort of attestation and some photos to be able to pop up when you're claiming a cover crop is going to address it. And we're going to find if there's a few bad actors, some of that staff that gets hired might do some drive-bys and be like, huh, that's interesting. And we might start to refine that and the board takes on some policy adjustments.
Yeah.
I guess it's as good a starting point as any.
Yeah. I mean, throw people a bone and maybe they'll do it. Maybe they'll come out better on the other side. I mean, they're, like you said, that's what I'm saying. And there's gonna be
For
revisions
2 or
all the
3
way.
inches they will.
For 2 or 3 inches, they will.
They should.
And it might help on the other end.
They might help at the other end.
Yeah,
And to your point, it's 3 inches is a little bit of a carrot where if it doesn't rain as much, they don't actually get that.
you don't get it. Yeah. And most years it's dry, right? So most years we're not gonna be getting anything. Or an inch or whatever it is. So 1 inch, is that really gonna make that much
I think
difference?
this solves the dilemma that started the discussion anyways,
Yeah,
where
It's just more
farmers,
staff time.
farmers who were gonna go buy and plant cover crops, are not gonna do that anymore because of 200 inches.
Not-
With this program, they would. Like
That's what-
Eduardo is here. And,
Yeah, Mike Brazil had a bunch of.
Mike and this is, they brought it up and this solves their issue. Everything's always more complex than,
one thing.
one guy's issue.
Yeah,
Getting there.
yeah.
Okay. So what we can do with this is we can take it, what do you think are next steps? Because this is not staff led, this is not board led, this is TAC driven. And so I really want it to be
We need to see something in writing
yeah,
and then we can, I would feel comfortable voting on recommending it or not.
We can't vote.
I know.
no.
It would be the next.
What we potentially could do is refine the language based on these conversations and, and the ongoing thinking and say, here are some suggested revisions of a section add and maybe a definition element that has to get added to the definition section. And someone within TAC can say, hey, we've been discussing this with staff as part of TAC and within our TAC, and we'd like to, whether it's an official TAC or at least as a stakeholder, like to submit this to the board for consideration. And maybe that's something that happens by March. And we move forward from there, and they then can officially start to discuss it. Does that work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Cool.
Lacey, does that work?
That works for me. So are we, is this committee meeting again in February? Or are you just getting the language? Because our schedule is every other month. We've been.
You can just present to the board as a part of public comment.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Oh, we voted on or whatever.
Can we work on a draft through email? Like, and then through that,
You can't be mindful of the Brown Act. You can correspond directly with staff.
Yeah, and we can send something to everybody, but it makes it a public document. So if somebody asks for it, I have to give it to them.
That's okay.
I don't think that's.
Don't draft on it.
just trying
a
to
problem.
not have the first review of a draft be a month or two from now.
You can send it to everybody.
Yeah,
I don't think that's-
I can send it to everybody and I can BCC you guys, so then you can only reply back to me.
Just get feedback from us, and I don't know if that we come back with a new version that incorporates edits that we then endorse as a group or someone individually to go to the next board meeting. That sounds,
Fine with me.
it's hard if we see the first written version at the next TAC meeting, and then, I mean, I guess we could, during that meeting, we could revise it a little bit, but.
Kick it out with the packet and then we can think about it. and then-
Well, I can get it out. I think we can get it out to you before the packet, before the next meeting. I'm thinking about board meetings and March is swamped. Like there's a lot at the March board meeting. We don't want this on March. This would go in April. So you've got time for us to share with you some language. Have you guys meet in March?
It's a way to bring good news to the growers while you're doing the 218.
Right.
Asking for money. There's a few potential inches of
Right.
butter.
So, okay,
Sweeten the pot a little bit.
yeah. So why don't we do that? We'll share some language in February. You guys review it. We'll have a March meeting. And then we'll have it on the, put it on the board agenda in April. And I would ask for somebody from the TAC, doesn't have to be 23, it could be anybody, kind of present that this is a TAC. You don't have to present the details of it, but kind of introduce it, that this comes to the TAC. It came up in the TAC, it's recommended by the TAC.
Didn't come across as staff.
I don't want it, yeah, I don't want it to come across as that, because it's not, it's TAC driven. Cool. Okay, we got a plan.
Those two, we should have Michael or Eduardo present.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't show up, you get volunteered for stuff.
Boom, done. Thank God we're here, guys.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Brad's ready to leave. I think we're good. So we'll have our next meeting in March. Daniel, did you already send out 2026 meetings for the TAC? I think so. Do we have it on the calendar already? It'd be the last, okay. So March 24th, we'll be back. And you will have seen it and provided comments in advance.
All right.
Alrighty.
Thank
Thanks,
you
everybody.
all.
3:17.
Don't forget about our great enjoyment we had earlier in this meeting. Don't let that
Please
slip away.
forget.
I'll never forget.
Please forget.